There is a specific kind of physical ache that only comes from severe depression and grief. I mean, I remember nights where I cried so hard that my whole body ached, my eyes were swollen shut, and I woke up feeling completely drained. It literally physically hurts.
It really does. Grief takes a massive physical toll on us. And, well, I love that the Word of God doesn't shy away from that reality.
Yeah, it's so raw.
Exactly. I mean, in Psalm chapter 6, David writes, I'm worn out from sobbing. All night I flood my bed with weeping. He even says his vision is literally blurred by his grief.
Wow. Yeah.
That is a real, raw mental health crisis right there on the page. In Christian wellness, we don't have to pretend we are fine when we are actually drowning in sorrow. Today at the cafe, we want to talk about what to do when your grief is so heavy it literally blurs your vision.
I am so glad we're having this conversation today because I feel like we constantly run into this invisible barrier when we talk about mental health, even here at the Crosstalk Cafe.
Oh, absolutely. We see it all the time.
Right. We have this tendency, both in society and honestly within the church, to categorize human suffering into two entirely separate buckets.
Right. The physical and the emotional.
Exactly. So over here, you have physical pain. If you fall off a ladder and break your collarbone, or if you are battling a severe flu, the damage is undeniable.
Yes, there is a clear diagnostic path.
Right. You get an x-ray, you get a thermometer reading, you get a cast. It is visible, it is binary, and people immediately rally around you, with casseroles and offers to mow your lawn.
Yeah.
We respect physical pain because we can see the mechanism of the injury.
We can measure it. We love things we can measure. We can look at a fractured bone on a scan and say, well, there's the problem right there.
But then you have this second bucket, right? Profound human emotion. You step into the landscape of deep depression or heavy, suffocating grief, and suddenly, poof, we lose our tools for measurement.
We really do. We treat emotional pain like it's a ghost.
Yes. Like it's a ghost. We treat it like something that haunts the mind, like a purely psychological phenomenon, but something that doesn't actually touch the physical world.
Which is just so backward.
It is. We create this incredibly rigid, artificial boundary between the body and the mind, and we just expect the damage of grief to be entirely invisible.
And that separation is not just inaccurate, it is actually quite harmful to the recovery process.
How so?
Well, when we pretend that depression and sorrow only exist in the abstract realm of thoughts and feelings, we end up demanding a level of resilience from people that is biologically impossible.
Oh, man. That's a strong way to put it, but it's so true.
It is. Think about it. If someone is recovering from a major surgery, we tell them to stay in bed, rest, and let their body knit itself back together.
We lower our expectations of their daily output.
Exactly. We offer grace. But if someone is navigating a profound season of sorrow, if they have just lost a loved one, or if they are in the darkest valleys of clinical depression society, often expects them to just wash their face, put on a forced smile, and show up to the morning meeting at full capacity.
Right, like just push through it.
Exactly. We act as if a wounded spirit doesn't require physical convalescence.
Which is so strange because anyone who has ever been truly, deeply, profoundly sad knows that it is one of the most intensely physical experiences in the human repertoire.
Oh, 100%. It's not just in your head.
It isn't just a sad thought passing through your consciousness. It is a full-body event. And, that brings us directly to the Word of God that we are looking at today.
Psalm chapter 6.
Right. When we read the Word of God, especially the Psalms, we don't find this neat, sterile separation of mind and body. We find raw, integrated human experience.
Yeah, David is putting it all out there.
Psalm chapter 6. Verses 6 and 7. It's essentially just two sentences, but the amount of truth packed into them is staggering.
It is an absolute masterclass in describing the human condition. I mean, David is not holding anything back.
No, not at all.
He is not trying to sound spiritual or put together or victorious. He is giving us a real-time, unfiltered report from the trenches of a mental health crisis.
Let's start with the overall theme of weariness. Because before we even get to the specific physical act of sobbing, I really want to talk about that word, weary.
Or as some translations put it, worn out.
Yes, worn out. Because I think we often misuse those terms in our modern vocabulary. Like I hear people say, oh, I'm so weary today. When what they really mean is, I stayed up too late watching a movie and I'm tired.
Right.
But being tired and being weary are not the same thing, are they?
They are entirely different states of being, both physically and emotionally.
Break that down for us.
Well, tiredness is the natural expected result of a short-term exertion. If you spend Saturday morning pulling weeds in your garden, you will be tired by lunch.
Sure, your muscles have done some work.
Right. Your muscles have expended energy, your blood sugar might be a little low, and you need to sit down in the shade with a glass of water. But after a meal and a good night's sleep, you wake up the next day completely restored.
So tiredness is like a normal cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tiredness is the result of a short event. Weariness, on the other hand, is the result of an era.
An era. Oh, I like that distinction. It implies a duration that you cannot just sleep off.
That's exactly it. Weariness is what happens when the exertion never stops. It is the result of a prolonged, unrelenting demand on your physical and emotional resources without any opportunity for restoration.
Give us an example of what that feels like physically.
Okay, imagine holding up a heavy, waterlogged canvas tent during a relentless rainstorm.
Oh, wow. That sounds awful.
Right, so for the first 10 minutes, you are simply using your strength. You might feel a burn in your shoulders, but, you are managing.
You can power through it for a bit.
Yes. But if that storm lasts for hours and then days, your muscles begin to fail. They begin to tremble. The lactic acid builds up. The muscle fibers themselves begin to fray. And eventually, no matter how much willpower you have...
Their arms are just going to give out.
Exactly. They will simply collapse. Weariness is the failure of the system after prolonged, unyielding resistance. It implies a chronic state of depletion.
So when David says he is worn out from sobbing, he isn't describing a fleeting moment of sadness.
No, not just a bad afternoon.
He isn't describing a sudden, sharp pang of regret that makes him tear up for 5 minutes. He is describing a grinding, sustained duration of suffering.
He has been holding up that heavy, wet canvas of his grief for so long.
Yes, and because of that, his body is simply shutting down. The structural integrity of his physical endurance has been compromised.
And this is such a vital point for Christian wellness. Often when people come into the Crosstalk Cafe, they are carrying immense guilt because they can't seem to, quote unquote, snap out of it.
Oh, the guilt is so heavy.
It is. They read verses about the joy of the Lord being our strength, and they wonder why they can barely physically get out of bed in the morning. They feel like a spiritual failure.
Well, in reality, it's a physical reality they're facing.
Precisely. What they are actually experiencing is severe physical weariness caused by emotional trauma. Their physical reservoir isn't just a little low, it is entirely drained. The reserves are gone. They are running purely on friction.
But, let me push back on that a little because I think it's an important distinction for us to make here at the cafe.
Sure, go ahead.
You're comparing the body's reaction to grief to physical trauma, like holding up a heavy weight or running a long distance.
Right.
But with physical trauma, the body naturally wants to heal itself. If I cut my hand, my body immediately sends platelets to the site, a scab forms, the skin knits back together. It's an automatic biological priority to heal.
That's how we're designed, yes.
But with deep grief or depression, it often feels like the exact opposite. It feels like the longer you sit in the sorrow, the worse the physical weariness gets. It doesn't seem to have that auto-heal function. Why is that?
That is a brilliant observation, and it cuts right to the heart of why mental health struggles are so physically draining.
Right, because it just lingers.
Well, when you get a physical cut, the event that caused the trauma, like the knife slipping, is over in a second. The stressor is removed, and the body can immediately pivot all its resources into the healing phase.
Because the danger is past.
Exactly. The environment is safe again. But with profound grief, the stressor is continuous. The loss of the loved one, the shattering of the relationship, the crushing weight of clinical depression, these things don't go away after a second.
They stay with you.
They do. The environment never signals to the body that it is safe to begin the resting and knitting process.
So the body stays locked in the trauma phase.
Yes. Biologically, your body doesn't differentiate very well between a physical threat in your environment and a severe emotional threat in your mind. It registers danger and pain.
Wow. So it reacts the same way to both.
It does. And so it keeps your systems on high alert. Your muscles remain perpetually tense, bracing for the next blow. Your heart rate is elevated. Your digestive system slows down because your body thinks it needs to conserve energy for a physical crisis.
It's preparing for a physical fight that never actually happens.
Exactly. If you remain in that state for weeks on end, of course you're going to become physically worn out. Your body is running a highly demanding emergency protocol 24/7. You are burning massive amounts of energy just sitting still. Eventually, the physical frame just starts to buckle.
And the most visible, visceral manifestation of that buckling is what David describes next, verse 6. I am worn out from sobbing.
Yeah, sobbing.
Let's really look closely at that physical mechanism, because he specifically uses the word sobbing. He doesn't say crying. He doesn't say weeping. There is a distinct difference, isn't there?
There is a massive physical difference. Crying can be a very passive, quiet event.
Right, like a single tear down the cheek.
Exactly. You can sit silently in a chair, entirely still, and tears can simply well up and fall. It doesn't require much muscular effort. Weeping is a step up. It usually involves some vocalization, a bit of breathiness, perhaps a few sniffles.
But sobbing is something else entirely.
Sobbing is an entirely different biological event. Sobbing is a violent, breathless, whole-body convulsion. It is an active, fiercely demanding physical state. I would go so far as to call it an athletic event of human misery.
An athletic event of misery. That is so perfectly stated. Walk us through the actual anatomy of a sob. What is happening in the body when someone reaches that level of sorrow?
Let's break it down mechanically.
Because I think if we really understand the mechanics of it, we will have a lot more empathy for why it leaves us so completely drained.
Absolutely. So, when a human being begins to truly sob, their respiratory system is essentially thrown into chaos. It starts with the diaphragm, which is that large, dome-shaped muscle sitting at the base of your chest right above your stomach.
The muscle that controls our breathing.
Right. Normally, the diaphragm contracts and relaxes in a smooth, rhythmic motion to draw air into the lungs. But during a sob, the diaphragm begins to spasm involuntarily.
It just freaks out.
It does. It contracts sharply and erratically, pulling air in with a stuttering, jagged gasp.
Oh, it's that catching breath that you can't control. You see it in children a lot after they've been crying hard, that little hiccup breath where they just can't catch their wind.
Exactly. That is the diaphragm spasming. And then the abdominal muscles forcefully, violently contract to push the air back out.
So you're gasping and then bearing down.
It's not a smooth exhale. It's a jarring, rigid push. The intercostal muscles, the muscles between your ribs, are pulling tight. And at the exact same time, there is a conflict happening in your throat.
A conflict? What do you mean?
Well, your glottis, the part of the larynx containing the vocal cords, is trying to stay wide open so you can gasp for air. But the muscles in the back of your throat, the ones involved in swallowing, are tensing up drastically because of the extreme emotional distress.
Wait, that's the famous lump in the throat sensation?
Yes. It is literally opposing muscle groups fighting against each other.
Oh my goodness, no wonder it hurts.
Right. The glottis is pulling open, the throat muscles are clamping shut. It creates incredible tension and physical soreness. Your facial muscles are entirely contorted, clamping down. The pressure behind your eyes skyrockets.
And your jaw clenches.
Yes, your jaw clenches tight. The heart rate accelerates to pump more blood to these spasming muscles. You are burning an incredible amount of calories and expending a massive amount of physical energy.
Just by standing there and crying.
Yes. If you sobbed continuously for an hour, your body would endure the muscular equivalent of a highly demanding, chaotic workout that it was entirely unwarmed up for.
Which perfectly explains the hangover effect of deep grief.
The grief hangover is so real.
We've all experienced this, or at least witnessed it. Think about the morning after a night of heavy sobbing. You finally manage to fall into a fitful sleep, and when you wake up the next morning, it isn't just that your mood is low.
Your whole body is wrecked.
Your body physically hurts, your chest feels bruised from the heaving of the diaphragm, your head is pounding, usually from severe dehydration because you've expelled so much fluid, and from the intense sinus pressure that built up.
And lethargy.
Yes. There is a profound lethargy in your limbs. Your arms and legs feel incredibly heavy, like they are filled with wet sand or lead. It takes conscious, agonizing effort just to push the blankets back and swing your legs over the edge of the bed. You are quite literally worn out.
The physical resources are simply gone. The glycogen stores in your muscles are depleted from the tension. The hydration levels are off. The physical reality of the sorrow has assaulted the biological frame.
What I find so powerful about this verse is that the Word of God validates this reality without any caveat.
It just states it as a fact.
Right. David doesn't apologize for his state. He doesn't say, I am worn out from sobbing, but, I need to just trust God more and get over it.
He doesn't add a neat little bow to the end of the sentence to make it more palatable for polite company.
No. He simply states it as a stark, undeniable fact. It is a report from the front lines of human suffering. He is taking his own pulse, assessing his physical and mental state, and reporting back. The pain has drained me to absolute zero.
And that validation is often the first step in Christian wellness recovery.
It really is.
Because when you are in that dark place, the isolation is deafening. You feel like you are the only person who has ever been this broken, this tired, this physically crippled by an emotion.
You feel entirely alone in it.
You do. And then you open the Word of God, written thousands of years ago by a warrior king, and he says, "Me too. I am right here with you. I am worn out from sobbing."
It removes the shame.
It entirely removes the shame from the physical weakness. It tells the reader that their weariness is not a sign of spiritual failure. It is simply the natural biological consequence of profound sorrow. You are not failing at life because you are worn down. You are simply human.
Let's look at the second half of verse 6, because David intensifies the imagery even further. He says, "All night I flood my bed with weeping."
That phrase, all night, is so heavy.
It introduces the element of location and the element of time, all night.
Huh.
He's describing a nocturnal battle. Why is it that grief always seems to be heaviest at night?
It's a phenomenon that almost anyone who has walked through severe depression or mourning will immediately recognize. During the day, we have distractions.
We have to keep moving.
Right. We have tasks, jobs, conversations, errands. The environment demands our attention, and we can compartmentalize the pain to some degree just to function. We build little dams to hold the sorrow back so we can make it through the grocery store, the staff meeting.
But at night, all the dams break.
At night, the world goes quiet, the distractions are removed, the external demands cease, and suddenly you are alone in the dark with nothing but the sheer, unmitigated weight of your own thoughts.
There's nowhere to hide from it.
Exactly. The silence becomes a magnifying glass for the pain. Your mind, which has been busy navigating the physical world all day, finally has the bandwidth to process the emotional reality, and it is overwhelming.
And he says he floods his bed with weeping. This is where it gets incredibly poignant. The bed is designed to be the ultimate place of sanctuary.
It's supposed to be safe.
It is the place of rest, restoration, and vulnerability. We go to bed to knit the frayed edges of the day back together to recover our physical strength so we can face tomorrow. But for David, the bed has become a place of labor. It has become the battleground.
That is a heartbreaking inversion of purpose. When the place of rest becomes the place of weeping, there is no restoration happening.
You're just losing more ground.
If you are flooding your bed with tears all night, you are not sleeping. You are not repairing. You are actively depleting your resources in the very place designed to replenish them. This compounds the weariness exponentially. You wake up more drained than when you laid down. You are starting the new day from a negative balance.
I think we need to pause here and really speak directly to you, the listener, who knows exactly what that nocturnal battle feels like.
Yeah, let's speak to that.
If you were sitting there right now listening to this conversation and your bed has become a place of tears rather than a place of rest, if you dread the sun going down because you know what the quiet of the night brings, we want you to hear this.
Yeah.
You are not alone, and your pain is valid.
Absolutely valid.
The Word of God sees that midnight struggle. It doesn't dismiss it. It records it as a profound reality of the human experience. Your weariness is justified.
Completely justified. You cannot treat a wound you refuse to acknowledge. And the beauty of Psalm chapter 6 is that it forces us to acknowledge the sheer, crushing reality of the wound. It forces us to stop pretending.
Now, as we move from verse 6 to verse 7, the Word of God does something fascinating. It moves from this general whole-body weariness, the spasming diaphragm, the flooded bed, the total physical drain, and it zeroes in on a highly specific, localized sensory distortion.
It goes right to the eyes.
Yes, it focuses on the eyes. Verse 7 says, "My vision is blurred by grief." This is such a layered, complex statement. I want to spend a significant amount of time here because I think this explains so much of why mental health crises are so difficult to navigate.
That's a huge part of the struggle.
Let's start with the most literal physiological level.
Uh,
Why does crying physically blur our vision?
On a purely mechanical level, human sight requires a very precise optical setup. The front of your eye, the cornea, is curved perfectly to take incoming light, bend it, and focus it sharply onto the retina at the back of your eye.
Like a camera lens.
Exactly. For this to work, the surface has to be perfectly smooth and clear. Now, we always have a tiny layer of basal tears covering our eyes just to keep them moist and lubricated, but emotional tears are completely different.
Wait, really? A tear isn't just a tear.
Not at all. Emotional tears, the ones produced by severe grief or depression, are chemically distinct from the reflex tears you get when you chop an onion or get dust in your eye.
How are they different?
Emotional tears contain significantly higher levels of certain proteins. This makes them physically thicker, they are more viscous, they are stickier.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. So they literally behave differently in the eye.
Yes. Because they are thicker and stickier, they don't just wash away quickly, they cling to the surface of the eye. They pool heavily. So think about what happens to light when it hits a thick, heavy pool of fluid sitting over your cornea.
It gets all warped.
Yes, the tear acts like a warped convex surface. It changes the refractive index. The light hits the tear and scatters in a dozen different directions before it ever reaches your retina.
It's like looking through a warped window pane or like trying to see the bottom of a pool when the water is choppy. The image is entirely distorted.
Exactly. The edges of the world are washed out. Street lines become wavy and indistinct. Your depth perception is completely compromised.
And your eyes are probably swollen too.
Oh, absolutely. Because of the violent sobbing we talked about earlier, the blood vessels in your sclera, the white part of your eye become engorged, and the delicate tissues of your eyelids swell up with fluid. This swelling literally narrows your field of vision.
You're squinting through the pain.
Right. So you have a restricted field of view, and what you can see is completely scattered and out of focus. You are, in a very literal, physical sense, blinded by the fluids of your own sorrow. The physical reality of the grief has completely obstructed the physical mechanism of sight.
That physical reality is profound. But David isn't just giving us an anatomy lesson here. He is using this physical reality to point to a much deeper psychological and spiritual truth. Because the blur doesn't stop when the tears dry.
No, it lingers long after.
The metaphorical level of this verse is where we really get into the daily struggle of Christian wellness. My vision is blurred by grief. Grief acts as a psychological distorting lens. It fundamentally alters how a person perceives their reality, how they perceive their future, and how they perceive the people around them.
This is perhaps the most dangerous aspect of severe depression. It doesn't just make you feel bad, it lies to you about the nature of reality. It is a filter placed over your consciousness that actively blocks out certain types of information while magnifying others.
I love this concept of the distorting lens. It's like imagine going to the eye doctor. You sit in the chair, and the doctor flips those heavy lenses in front of your face. Better one or better two. We all know that process.
Yeah, trying to find clarity.
Usually the goal is to find the exact prescription that brings the world into sharp, perfect focus. But imagine if someone secretly swapped out the good lenses for a completely wrong, highly distorted prescription.
Oh, that would be awful.
Suddenly, you open your eyes, and the world is unrecognizable. Everything you look at is out of focus. Straight lines look crooked. Distances are impossible to judge. A step that looks 2 inches down might actually be a 10-foot drop.
It becomes incredibly disorienting. You lose your bearings entirely.
It becomes dangerous. Navigating the physical world with the wrong prescription makes you clumsy, it makes you fearful, and it isolates you because you know you aren't seeing what everyone else is seeing.
And that's exactly what grief does to the mind.
Right. When you are looking through the blurred lens of grief, navigating the emotional and relational world becomes just as dangerous and disorienting. A sunny, beautiful day doesn't look beautiful. Through the lens of deep depression, it looks mocking. It feels like an insult.
Everything is painted gray.
Exactly. A friend sending a text that says, "Hey, how are you doing?" doesn't look like an act of care. Through the blurred lens of grief, it might look like an interrogation, or a demand for energy you don't have, or a reminder of how broken you are. The lens completely changes the data entering your mind.
You are describing what we often refer to as cognitive distortions. When we are deeply worn out by sorrow, our perception naturally skews negative.
It's like we can't help it.
We really can't. If 10 good things happen in a day and one mildly bad thing happens, the blurred vision of grief will filter out all 10 good things. You won't even register them.
But that one bad thing.
That one bad thing gets magnified until it consumes your entire field of view. You look at your future, and instead of seeing possibilities or paths forward, the blur obscures the horizon. All you see is a gray, indistinct fog of continued pain. You can't see the exit door, even if it's right in front of you.
But this raises a really difficult question, and it's one I've wrestled with myself.
Yeah.
If our vision is literally blurred by grief, if this lens is distorting our reality and filtering out the truth, does that mean our grief is lying to us?
That's a tricky one.
And if so, isn't there a danger in telling someone that their vision is blurred? I mean, if someone comes to the Crosstalk Cafe weeping and they say, my life is completely over, nobody cares about me, nothing will ever get better, and we just say, well, your vision is just blurred by grief, doesn't that sound incredibly dismissive? Like we're invalidating their pain.
That is such a critical tension to manage in Christian wellness and recovery. It absolutely can be dismissive if we handle it poorly.
How do we handle it well then?
That is exactly why the validation of verse 6 has to come before the observation of verse 7. You have to first acknowledge and validate the very real physical agony of the sobbing and the weariness.
You have to sit in the pain first.
Yes, the pain is not a lie. The grief is telling the absolute truth that a severe wound has occurred. Your heart is broken, your body is drained, the loss is real, and the pain is entirely justified.
So the feeling of the pain is true.
Yes, the feeling of the pain is 100% true and must be honored. But the conclusions you draw about the world while looking through the lens of that pain are often deeply inaccurate.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, let's say you are in the deepest pit of depression. You might feel a crushing sense of loneliness. That feeling of loneliness is intensely real. It hurts physically. We must validate that feeling.
Right.
But the conclusion your blurred vision draws from that feeling, the conclusion that says, I am fundamentally unlovable, nobody has ever cared about me, and I will be alone forever, that conclusion is a distortion. It is a trick of the warped lens.
Wow, that is such a vital distinction. The feeling is valid, but the conclusion is distorted.
Exactly. And recognizing that the blur exists is often the first step towards seeing clearly again. You can't adjust your vision until you realize it's distorted in the first place. As long as you believe that the gray, hopeless fog you see is the actual objective reality of the world, you will remain trapped in it.
You have to know the fog is there.
Right, but the moment you can say, like David did, my vision is blurred by grief, you are making a profound declaration. You are admitting the way the world looks to me right now is not the way the world actually is. My perception is compromised by my pain.
But, that requires an incredible amount of self-awareness, which is so hard to muster when you are already physically worn out from sobbing. It's asking someone who has no energy left to do heavy lifting.
Which is exactly why community is so essential. This is why we gather at the Crosstalk Cafe.
Because we can't do it alone.
When your vision is blurred by grief, you cannot trust your own eyes. You have to borrow the eyes of the people around you. You have to rely on a community of fellow believers who can see clearly on your behalf.
Oh, I love that, borrowing their eyes.
Yeah. When you say, I am completely worthless and my future is destroyed, the community can say, we hear how much pain you are in, and we are sitting right here in the mud with you. But we also see your worth, we see the grace of God on your life, and we see a path forward, even if you can't see it right now.
We will hold the hope for you.
Exactly. We will hold the hope for you until your vision clears.
That is the beautiful, practical reality of bearing one another's burdens. It's not about fixing them in 5 minutes. It's about providing accurate navigational data for someone who is temporarily flying blind.
It's about being a guide.
I want to turn this directly to you, the listener, right now. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever looked back at a deeply painful period in your life? A bitter breakup, the loss of a job, a season of severe clinical depression, and realized once you were finally out of it and the fog had lifted, that you were completely misreading the situations around you.
It's a very common realization in recovery.
It really is. You look back and think, wow, my family was really trying to reach out to me. They were leaving voicemails and dropping off meals, but I just couldn't see their love. All I saw was interference.
Or you misread a failure.
Right. I thought that one failure meant my entire career was completely irreversibly over. But I was just looking at a minor, temporary setback through a lens of total, catastrophic despair. That is the reality of having your vision blurred by what you are feeling. The truth is warped by the tears.
And that brings us to the ultimate trap that these two verses describe when we put them together.
Let's bring it all together.
We've talked about verse 6, the physical depletion. I am worn out from sobbing. And we've talked about verse 7, the perceptive distortion. My vision is blurred by grief. When you look at them together, you see a masterfully constructed, progressive nature to the suffering. It's not just a random list of complaints. It's an escalating sequence that creates a devastating closed loop.
A closed loop. Walk us through how those two verses interact to trap the sufferer.
Think about what it takes to escape. If you are in a dangerous or painful situation, you need two things to get out. First, you need the physical energy and ability to move, to walk, to run, to climb out of the pit.
The strength.
Yes. Second, You need the perceptive ability to navigate, to see the exit, to read the map, to avoid obstacles on your way out.
You need strength and you need sight.
Precisely. Now look at what grief has done to David in this passage. Step 1. The violent, relentless sobbing wears out the physical body. The energy reserves are entirely depleted. The muscles tremble, the lungs ache. He is physically incapable of moving because he is worn out. The strength is gone.
The body has failed.
Right. Step 2. The lingering, heavy tears and the psychological weight of the sorrow smear the lens of reality. His vision is blurred. He cannot see the path forward. He cannot see the door. He cannot discern friend from foe. The sight is gone.
So you have a person who is, first, too utterly physically depleted to stand up and walk, and second, even if they could somehow miraculously summon the physical energy to take a step, they are perceptively blind.
They wouldn't know which direction to walk anyway.
They can't run, and they can't navigate. The body has failed, and the senses have failed. It is the ultimate expression of feeling entirely hopelessly trapped by sorrow. The grief has conquered both the physical ability to escape and the mental ability to plot the escape route.
It creates a state of total paralysis. And when you are in that closed loop of paralysis, the darkness feels absolute. You are sitting on a flooded bed, your body aching, staring into a gray, indistinguishable fog, utterly convinced that this is all there will ever be for the rest of your life.
It sounds incredibly bleak. If we stop there, it sounds like pure despair.
Yeah.
So how do we use this in Christian wellness? How are you supposed to practically apply this terrifying description to your own life today? Is this Word of God just a depressing mirror showing us how bad things can get, or is it offering us something more?
What is the lifeline here?
Yeah, exactly. What is the lifeline?
The lifeline is the articulation itself. The lifeline is the fact that it is written down in the Word of God for all of history to read.
The fact that it's acknowledged.
Yes. In the midst of that total paralysis, the most agonizing secondary emotion is the belief that you are an anomaly, the belief that you are uniquely broken, the lie that no one else in the history of humanity has ever felt the specific combination of physical drain and visual blindness.
The isolation makes the pain twice as heavy.
Because if you are the only one who has ever felt it, then there is no cure, there is no map, and no one can save you.
But by articulating these extreme physical and perceptive states so clearly, with such raw, unvarnished honesty, David reaches across millennia and speaks directly into the modern sufferer's dark room.
He tells the reader, your pain is not an anomaly.
It is a known, documented human experience. Your pain has a real, tangible physical weight that is breaking your body down, and that is normal. Furthermore, it is completely natural and expected that you cannot see the future clearly right now. It's normal that your vision is blurred.
It's giving permission. It is granting permission to be worn out. It's telling the listener, you are not failing at your faith because you are physically depleted by your grief. You are simply experiencing the natural biological and psychological consequence of living in a broken world.
When someone is trapped in that closed loop of suffering, hearing someone else describe the exact dimensions of that trap is often the tiny spark of light they need to realize they are going crazy.
It brings profound dignity back to the sufferer. It validates the tears. And as we said earlier, validation is the precursor to healing. You have to locate the wound before you can dress it.
And David is locating the wound for us.
Yes, he is.
Which brings us to a beautiful, integrated understanding of what it means to be human and how God designed us. We aren't just thoughts driving around in flesh vehicles, and we aren't just physical machines devoid of a spirit. We are deeply, wonderfully integrated beings.
Body, mind, and spirit.
Yes. Our emotions, our spiritual state, and our physical biology are entirely intertwined. The weeping body and the sorrowful mind are inseparable. What happens in the soul echoes in the diaphragm, and what happens in the tears alters the perception of the mind.
It is a holistic view of human suffering, which requires a holistic approach to recovery. We cannot just pray the depression away while ignoring the physical depletion, and we cannot just prescribe physical rest while ignoring the spiritual and emotional wounds. We must address the whole person.
As we start to bring our time at the cafe today to a close, I want to pull all of these threads together. We set out to look at just 2 verses today, Psalm chapter 6, verses 6 and 7.
And there is so much there.
There is. And what we've discovered is an incredibly dense, layered observation of our pain. We've seen that deep emotion aggressively taxes our physical bodies. It treats our muscular and nervous systems the same way a grueling physical challenge would, leaving us literally physically worn out.
The spasming diaphragm, the flooded bed, the tension headaches, it is a physical trauma.
And we've seen how that same grief, acts as a heavy, viscous lens, fundamentally altering the way we perceive reality. It filters out the light of hope, magnifies the darkness, and leaves us with blurred vision, unable to trust our own conclusions about our worth and our future.
So if you are listening to this right now and you are currently walking through a season of sobbing, a season of heavy, unyielding sorrow, I want to ask you a direct question.
Please do.
Are you carrying a grief so heavy that it is literally blurring your vision and draining your physical body today?
If you are, we want you to take this conversation as a mandate to give yourself an immense amount of grace. Recognize that your physical lethargy is not weakness or laziness. It is a literal state of biological depletion. You are worn out from a massive internal battle.
And if you know someone who is grieving, give them that same grace. Do not expect them to have perfect, clear vision right now. Do not demand that they see the bright side. Do not expect them to have physical or emotional energy that they simply do not possess. Allow them the space to have weary eyes.
Sit with them in the blur.
Yes, sit with them in the blur.
Allow the weariness. Do not rush the healing. And part of not rushing the healing is making sure you are not walking through it alone. When your vision is blurred, you need a community to help you navigate. We want to be that community for you.
We really do.
If you are local to our area, we invite you to join us at Peters Creek Baptist Church in South Park, Pennsylvania.
We have a wonderful supportive structure here. Every Friday evening, we follow a steady schedule designed to help us walk this road of recovery together. We start at 6:30 p.m. with our large group worship. It's a time to gather, center our minds, and lift our focus.
Then what happens?
Then, from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., we break out into our gender-specific small groups. This is where the real honest work happens, where you can share about the blurred vision and the weariness in a safe, confidential environment.
And then we bring it all together.
Right. Finally, from 8:30 to 9 p.m., we all gather together for the Crosstalk Cafe, which is exactly the kind of open, peer-to-peer fellowship we've been modeling today.
And we have a special announcement for our local community. Our next community dinner is coming up on Friday, May 29th, from 5:15 to 6 p.m., right before the large group worship begins.
Yeah.
We are serving a fantastic taco bar.
Oh, I love the taco bar.
It's the best. We'll have seasoned ground beef, shredded chicken, cilantro rice, black beans, chips, salsa, and all the standard toppings you could want.
Yeah.
It is a great time to just sit across the table from someone, share a meal, and build those vital connections.
What's the cost for that?
The cost is just $5 for adults, $3 for ages 6 to 17, and kids 5 and under eat completely free. We also have a $25 family maximum, so it's incredibly affordable to bring the whole family out for a good meal and great fellowship.
Now, we know that many of you listening are not local to the South Park area, and that is perfectly okay. The community you need is still out there. If you need to find a group closer to your home, you can find a Celebrate Recovery near you by heading over to the website crlocator.waitom. Just enter your zip code, and it will show you the closest meetings in your area. Please, do not try to navigate the blurred vision alone. Reach out.
And if you have any questions about our program, or if you just need someone to connect with this week, please reach out to us directly. You can email Craig Amstone at craig.amstone@gmail.com, or you can contact the main church office at info@pcdc.church.
We are here, we are listening, and we understand the physical weight of what you are carrying.
Thank you for spending this time with us at the cafe. Until we meet again, give yourself the grace to rest. Trust the community when your vision fails, and take care of each other.